Classroom for Heroes is a slice-of-life fantasy series based off a light novel by Araki and is animated by Actus. This show takes place at Rosewood Academy, a special school where students train to become heroes, and follows the lives of Blade and his new friends. After defeating the Demon King and losing his powers, Blade begins attending the academy with the goal of making friends and living a normal life. Upon his arrival there, he quickly becomes acquainted with many of his classmates, most notably the school's top student, Ernest Flaming, and a powerful girl named Sophie. The first few episodes hone in on each of the three main female characters that Blade befriends within a short time on campus. In addition to introducing the protagonist and the supporting cast, the premiere focuses on Ernest and her issues controlling the cursed sword Asmodeus. Episode 2 centered mainly on Sophie and establishes a bond between her and Blade. The focal point for the third episode is a dragon girl named Kuchulayan that he starts to care for as a daughter. It's great that Araki has given attention to each member of the main cast this early on. However, the plot progression has been pretty slow overall. One could argue that the pacing for the first episode was a bit too fast though. I wasn't expecting Ernest's situation to be resolved so quickly, and it probably should have at least been a two-parter, given the sudden departure from her tsundere-isms at the end. Also, I'm not a big fan of the changes to her character, and I much prefer her initial hairstyle and attitude. Ernest just looks far less distinctive with her hair down. Plus, I'm a sucker for that Dure archetype when it's handled well. Anyway, the problem with the poor pacing is exacerbated by the fact that a couple of these plot lines seem like filler, especially the latter half of the fourth episode. In spite of these issues, the show has been quite entertaining thanks to its fun cast of characters and solid comedic scenes. I like how Araki has written the characters, especially Blade, who can be quite spirited at times and is usually clueless about little things due to being a hero his entire life. I love how he's introduced after the opening scene in the premiere, in which he goes around asking to be friends with the students around him. There's a few moments like that during the first episode that is reminiscent of Shiki at the beginning of Eden Zero, when he kept asking Rebecca and others to be his friend. Another character I'm liking so far is Sophie. I appreciate that the author didn't write Sophie as a completely stoic character, given what is revealed about her. She's a nice contrast to Blade in terms of her motivation and personality. Sophie isn't nearly as free-spirited or lively as he is, nor is she as talkative as the rest of the cast. There's a particular scene with her and Blade in episode 2 that was both adorable and amusing. Classroom of Heroes has a very light tone and is typically very comical, although maybe this might change later on once the narrative picks up. There's one particular scene in the second episode between Blade and Sophie that was unexpectedly emotional. This dramatic sequence between the pair was pretty good, and the effort the studio put into how they presented the scene is admirable, although I didn't like how they handled certain parts of it. For a lower tier production from a lesser known studio whose most notable work is Transformers Energon, they've done an excellent job with the show's visuals. The artwork and backgrounds are very well done. One of the things that caught my attention immediately when I saw the trailer for the series was the quality of the animation. It was impressive during the premiere, which featured a brief fight between Ernest and Sophie that looked great. However, the episodes that followed didn't have animation that was consistently at that same level. It still looked good during certain parts, and at the very least is better than some other smaller productions within the fantasy genre. It's worth mentioning that there hasn't been a lot of fight scenes so far. In fact, there are a couple episodes with little to no action sequences. This is yet another factor that compounds the narrative progression issue I mentioned previously. As a result, I wouldn't be surprised if many folks drop this show early on simply because they find the start of the series too boring. Something else that is likely to turn some viewers off is the amount of fan service throughout the series. Actus doesn't go overboard with it or linger on certain shots for too long, but they do put it blatantly in your face regardless of the situation. There are plenty of close-up shots on Ernest's chest and some where the camera is angled to where the focal point is a girl's butt. Like I said before, they don't go crazy with it, but those with a low tolerance for fan service might be bothered by what's been shown so far. With all that said, I totally understand why someone might not like this anime based on what we've gotten up to this point. This show needs to begin diving into its story a bit and start seeding some kind of internal or external conflict soon. Given the nature of the series, I'm not expecting Blade and his buddies to go on some grand adventure or for the narrative to start exploring complex themes and ideas. Classroom of Heroes currently seems like just another run-of-the-mill friendship anime with a premise and setup setup that you've likely seen countless times before. As much as I'm enjoying this show right now, I'll be the first to admit that it comes across as just another generic fantasy series with a school setting. It isn't really doing anything new or special that would distinguish it from similar anime that have aired in recent years. Classroom of Heroes is basically just the Ice Blade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World, but with better animation and special effects. Both shows feature an incredibly strong protagonist who is no longer at full power, attending school while hiding who they are from their peers. That show even has its own red-haired girl that quickly falls for the main character, much like Ernest does with Blade. However, unlike this series, Ice Blade Sorcerer had a couple things going for it, such as its magic system which functions using code. This anime has something called Fighting Spirit, but the series hasn't explained how it works yet. There hasn't been much in terms of world building, apart from some unique dragon lore in the 3rd episode. As it stands, Classroom of Heroes is a decent show that looks good and is typically pretty funny. While there is certainly enjoyment to be had watching Blade and his friends interact with each other, the lack of action combined with bad pacing and filler-like storylines makes this one hard to recommend watching right now. For those that have seen this anime, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.